You think arguing proves intelligence, but every explanation exposes weakness, every defense surrenders power, and every comeback decides your rank. If that stings, stay. Chapter 1. Arguments are courts, not conversations. You were taught that arguments are about truth. They are not. They are courts. And every time you open your mouth, you are either the judge or the defendant. Most men enter arguments believing logic will save them. They bring facts like offerings, they explain, they clarify, they soften, they hope to be understood, and in doing so they quietly confess guilt. Not guilt of wrongdoing, guilt of lower status, because in every human interaction there is an unspoken question being answered long before any sentence finishes. Who has the right to stand without defending themselves? Power never explains itself. Authority never justifies itself. Sovereignty never begs to be believed. The moment you feel the urge to prove, you have already stepped into the lower position. You have accepted the role of someone who can be evaluated, corrected, approved, or dismissed. Look closely at every argument you've lost, not the words. The posture. Who leaned forward? Who spoke faster? Who needed to convince? That was not conversation. That was trial, and you volunteered to be prosecuted. You were trained to believe that fairness lives in language. That if you explain clearly enough, the other side will recognize your worth, that intelligence is visible through articulation. This belief keeps you harmless. In real power dynamics, words are decoration. Position is everything. The one who does not rush, the one who does not react, the one who does not defend, that is the one the room adjusts to. You don't lose arguments because you lack intelligence. You lose because you still believe arguments are about intelligence. They are about hierarchy. And the hierarchy is decided before the first sentence ends. Once you see this, every past debate changes meaning. Every explanation you gave feels heavier. Every defense feels unnecessary. Every attempt to be understood starts to look like submission. This is the first fracture, the first lens shift. Arguments are not conversations, they are courts, and you have been testifying against yourself. Chapter 2. The mechanism of status bleeding. Every argument is powered by one invisible mechanism. Status transfer. You think you are exchanging ideas. You are actually exchanging position. The human brain does not evaluate arguments like a machine. It evaluates who is speaking before it evaluates what is spoken. Authority is processed faster than logic. Confidence is processed faster than truth. Calm is processed faster than evidence. This is why the most wrong person in the room can still dominate the conversation. Because dominance is not proven, it is assumed. The moment you rush to defend yourself, you initiate status bleeding. You signal that your position is fragile. You show that it can be questioned. You reveal that you require approval to stand. Your opponent doesn't need to defeat your logic. They only need to make you explain. Explanation is psychological kneeling. Children explain, subordinates explain, defendants explain, leaders observe. This is not cruelty, it is pattern. The brain associates explanation with lower ground because explanation is an attempt to regain lost position. The more passionately you justify, the more you confirm that something has already been taken from you. That is why some people grow quieter when challenged and yet gain more power. Their silence creates imbalance. The other person begins filling the gap, defending, over-talking, bleeding status in reverse. This is the psychological trap. You were taught that communication solves conflict, but in power dynamics, communication exposes hierarchy. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology named it. He wrote for rulers, not for moral comfort. He observed that men do not follow truth, they follow perceived strength. And strength is read in restraint. You don't lose arguments because you lack intelligence. You lose because you are still playing by a moral rulebook in a biological game. The mechanism is simple. Whoever needs to convince, loses. Whoever can remain still, governs. Once you understand this, you stop trying to win arguments. You start allowing others to lose themselves. And that is when power begins to move in your direction. Chapter 3. The species inside the argument. Every argument contains 4 creatures. Most people never notice them. That is why they remain inside their stomachs. The first is the pawn. The pawn argues to be liked. He wants agreement, not dominance. He uses logic as a plea. He believes fairness is protection. He thinks being reasonable makes him safe. It does not. It makes him edible. The second is the performer. He argues to be seen. He wants applause, not victory. He uses intelligence as costume. He talks beautifully while losing position. He leaves every argument exhausted and still inferior. The third is the predator. He does not argue to prove. He argues to move the board. He interrupts softly. He reframes silently. He allows others to speak just enough to expose themselves. He does not chase agreement. He harvests leverage. The fourth is the sovereign. He rarely argues at all. When he speaks, it is short. When he is silent, it is heavy. People begin justifying themselves to him without instruction. He does not seek to win arguments. He seeks to define reality. Most men oscillate between pawn and performer. They call it confidence. It is performance anxiety. They mistake volume for authority. They mistake logic for position. They mistake emotion for strength. The predator sees this immediately. The sovereign never needs to. Machiavelli observed this in courts, councils, and kings. He saw that power never belonged to the loudest mind. It belonged to the quietest presence. Once you recognize these archetypes, you stop asking who is right. You start asking who is being positioned. And that question changes everything. Because arguments are not intellectual exchanges, they are selection rituals, and every time you speak, you are revealing what kind of creature you are. Chapter 4. The arena was never neutral. You were taught arguments are about truth. They are not. They are about territory. History proves this with surgical clarity. Courts did not crown kings because they were correct. Councils did not follow generals because they were kind. Empires were built by men who understood one brutal law. Perception decides authority. Machiavelli watched this inside palaces where one sentence could erase a man. He saw scholars lose to soldiers. He saw moral men lose to strategic ones. Not because they were wrong, but because they misunderstood the battlefield. Arguments are not debates. They are exposures. Every time you defend, you place yourself beneath the blade. Every time you explain, you surrender height. Every time you seek fairness, you admit dependence. Human nature does not reward clarity. It rewards dominance of frame. Look at modern politics. Look at corporate rooms. Look at social media. The one who speaks less is quoted more. The one who reacts least is respected most. The one who refuses to justify becomes the standard others orbit. People do not follow logic. They follow certainty. And certainty does not require proof. It requires posture. This is why dangerous men throughout history spoke in fragments. Why emperors used silence as punctuation. Why judges never rushed answers. Because speed signals need signals weakness. Arguments are rituals where hierarchy is negotiated in real time, and most men walk into them believing they are discussing ideas, while their position is being quietly dismantled. The tragedy is not that people lose arguments. The tragedy is they never realize what they lost. Status, control, psychological altitude. Once you see this, you can no longer unsee it. You stop arguing to convince. You start observing to command, because the man who understands the arena no longer fights inside it. He shapes it. Chapter 5. Strategic silence is a weapon. Most men believe power comes from saying the right thing. It doesn't. Power comes from deciding when not to speak. Silence is not absence. Silence is pressure. In war, the general who waits controls the battlefield. In surgery, the hand that pauses avoids the fatal cut. In conversation, the man who delays forces the other to reveal. When you answer immediately, you obey tempo. When you stay still, you own it. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. He wrote that men judge more by what they see than by what they understand. Silence makes others project. Projection exposes weakness. The strategic man does not rush to defend. He lets the accusation. Chapter 6. Identity, Death, and Replacement. You cannot evolve while protecting the version of you that failed. The old identity must die, not dramatically, not emotionally, silently. The version of you that needed approval, the version that explained itself, the version that believed being understood was the same as being respected. That man was useful once. He is now a liability. Machiavelli never spoke about confidence as emotion. He spoke about position. Who you are is not what you feel. It is what others are forced to assume about you. Identity is a costume the world assigns you, and every reaction you give reinforces it. When you defend, you confirm weakness. When you argue, you confirm insecurity. When you chase understanding, you confirm inferiority. So the strategist commits identity murder. He stops explaining, he stops proving, he stops narrating himself. He allows silence to rewrite his presence. The new identity does not seek to win arguments. It seeks to end them, not by domination, by withdrawal of access. The sovereign version of you is not louder. He is harder to reach. He does not correct. He observes. He does not react. He measures. He does not need agreement. He only needs positioning. This is where confidence becomes dangerous. Because people cannot challenge what they cannot read. You are no longer a character in the conversation. You are the atmosphere, and atmospheres control behavior without speaking. The replacement identity is colder, not cruel, precise. It is built on one principle. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be unavoidable. Once this shift occurs, arguments lose meaning, approval loses value, and your presence alone begins to dictate outcome. The old self wanted to be right, the new self does not care, and that indifference is what makes him untouchable. Chapter 7. Final Warning and Elite Separation. This is where the crowd quietly disappears. Not because they disagree, because they recognize themselves. They feel the ground shifting under their identity. They sense that staying would require the death of something familiar, and familiarity is their only god. Machiavelli never wrote for believers. He wrote for men willing to abandon innocence. That is the cost of dangerous confidence, not arrogance, not noise, not intimidation, but separation. When you stop defending yourself, you stop begging to exist. When you stop explaining, you stop asking for permission. When you stop justifying, you stop submitting. Most men cannot survive that silence. They need reaction to feel real. They need opposition to feel powerful. They need applause to feel alive. You are being trained to survive without all three. This is why confidence terrifies people, not because it is loud, but because it is unnecessary. Predators fear what does not seek validation. Crowds distrust what does not mirror them. Weak men resent what does not need them. That is why this knowledge is not taught, it is filtered. Filtered by discomfort, filtered by resistance, filtered by identity collapse. If you are still here, something in you has already cracked. The obedient part, the agreeable part, the performative part, good. That fracture is not damage, it is access. You are no longer learning how to speak. You are learning when not to. You are no longer trying to win arguments. You are learning how to make them unnecessary. You are no longer asking how to be confident. You are learning how to be unreachable. This is not about dominance over others. It is about sovereignty over yourself. The man who needs nothing cannot be negotiated with. The man who explains nothing cannot be trapped. The man who walks away controls the table. This is what Machiavelli meant, not cruelty, not ego, but strategic detachment. And detachment is power in its purest form. If this sounds cold, it is. Because fire does not apologize for heat. Innocence is comfortable. Awareness is lethal. You cannot carry both. Most will close this video and return to performance, to politeness, to justification, to smallness disguised as morality. A few will not. If you are one of them, you already understand what this subscription means. Not support, not fandom, not entertainment. A line. A line between who you were trained to be and who you are now becoming. Welcome to MindForge, where identity is not protected, it is forged.